This is it, ladies and gentlemen, the end of the game. At this point, we basically won, and it's just a matter of getting to the end and not getting killed by the giant wall monster.
That's the face that knows your browser history.
Evelyn is kind of a tragic figure. I mean, she's insane and needs to be destroyed because, well, she's frankly not safe for anyone to be around. But, you know, it is what it is. And one thing that I was a bit surprised by was where you ended up coming out of the mines, though. I didn't expect this to be the final area of the game. It makes sense, and I like what they did with it as far as, you know, the scenes you encounter while you're in there. But you get through this wall. Stop hesitating past me. You get through this wall, and you come out in the basement of the guest house from the beginning of the game.
Huh. How odd. Also,
The first thing you should have spotted was a lawnmower.
Jack.
Alright,
I killed him.
The use of the wheelchair, just sitting there, kind of really does remind me of Silent Hill, though. And, you know, this probably...
Well, mostly because the wheelchairs run you over in those games.
What?
Jerks.
Well, did you not ever watch anything of 4 or play it?
No.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, wheelchairs attacking on 4.
Huh. Okay. Whoa.
Oh, I remember. This is where the Kool-Aid Man attacked us.
Yep. This scene is just here to make sure you remember this is where you were before. And you find...
Amazing how we're connected to the mines.
Then you find the picture here now, with added context. Shocker.
Yep.
Da 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 da.
Now,
Wait,
you find
Evelyn's the grandma?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
You don't find out why she's the grandma until you read the credits. There's a scrolling sort of newspaper clipping during the latter part of the credits that you might think is a newspaper article at first glance, but when you read it, it's actually an advertisement for the bioweapon that this company wrote for the people that they're selling it to. And part of it describes that Evelyn, or this particular class of bioweapon, has an advanced aging capability, so it won't like outlast itself or something. It's kind of like
Planned obsolescence, really.
Yeah.
The first bit of hint that you get that they're one and the same is a file that Lewis picked up earlier, though.
Yeah.
Where Lucas does comment that Evelyn is growing gray hair and looks to be getting older.
Yeah.
But she de-aged back.
No.
No, wait.
The young version is a hallucination.
Whenever you see the young Evelyn, it's a hallucination. She's not physically there. Well, except during maybe the flashback sequence with Mia on the boat, where she actually was a girl. But in the 3 years since, she's aged into an old granny. So she has worse advanced aging problems than fucking Solid Snake. Jesus Christ. But yeah, you got to experience Chainsaw Mia again. But here's the thing. Chainsaw Mia can't actually hurt you, no matter how much she scares the piss out of you when she appears. So don't bother wasting bullets on her. Or blocking, or anything. Just wait it out.
Doesn't want to be my daddy? Then he can die.
What is with
Learn
your...
to use your... You learn to use your lips, sorry.
What is with Evelyn's lip syncing?
I'm one to talk.
What is with Evelyn's lip syncing in this section? I don't get it. Whenever she appears, whenever her young version appears specifically, her lips don't work. It's like she doesn't know how to hallucinate proper lip syncing into people's minds. Maybe that was intentional.
Hey, it's tough, man.
I was going to say, she's never worked in ADR or something.
Now, they do some sort of vaguely Silent Hillish symbolism things here, like there's the dollhouse in the fireplace, which is obviously there to prevent you from opening the secret passage, but it's also symbolic for, you know, the house, the family, it's destroyed. And then, after you go down this way, they do something really cool with the kitchen table. Hang on.
That's the one where you were trapped and they were eating like people at, right?
No, that's in the main house. This is the guest house where you came in at the beginning. So it's where you opened the pot and bugs came out.
No! Get that away from me!
Hi, Mia. How are you? Oh, no. Are you trying to give me a shave? Oh, that a little higher. No, lower, lower. Yeah, that's where it's at. Okay. Let's see.
Geez,
Look.
you try
Yeah.
to be a supportive husband and surprise your wife at work, and this is the thanks you get. Shake my head.
So, I've seen an analysis of this particular set piece where each of the other chairs is supposed to represent one of the bakers, and the one that's overturned is Zoe.
Do you not see Zoe again after the
Nope. Well, not until you get to her DLC anyway.
after the choice where you can?
Nope, you don't. Well, in the Baker.
In the Joe Baker DLC, you
Yeah, the
see
Jack.
her,
Yeah, Joe
Now,
Baker.
you don't have to come in here and see this particular optional scene of Mia, but, I figured I'd show it off.
I really do have superpowers. I'm taking a chainsaw to the gut.
Honey, listen, I know this is just a phase, but you gotta stop.
I like to play it like Ethan has actually been paying attention to the files and realizes this is all hallucination, so he's just letting it play out. It's like, it'll leave me alone if I just let it go away. That picture with the bag over its head was something that you had to do something to in the demo to complete the challenges and get the nerdy coin, if I remember correctly. I don't even remember what the challenges
Stop
are.
Ganon teleporting.
Something about bloody handprints on a door, which actually kind of reminds me of Silent Hill 4 now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, there was a lot of Silent Hill in this. Hi, Evie. How are you doing? I have a Magnum with your name on it. Do you want it?
Oh, look, it's the only part of the game where you're required to block.
Yeah, and if you haven't been blocking and forgot how to do it, well,
The game will tell you.
you're gonna have trouble here. Time to take your medicine. And even though you were hallucinating that, you still wind up in front of the granny. Oriented in a completely different direction from where you were facing before.
Everyone hates you because you're controlling them.
Yeah, Evelyn is, like I said, Evelyn is crazy. She doesn't understand what she is or why people are resisting or whatever. She has no concept of normalcy whatsoever.
Oh, what a world, what a world. And then Ethan just starts dancing around. Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Not yet. And like I said, this is pretty much a carbon copy of the final Birkin form from Resident Evil 2, where it's just a wall of mutated fuckery advancing towards you, and you just have to shoot it dead before it gets to you. And that's why I'm using my Magnum.
It's the only time it's useful.
Oh, it's useful. It blows enemies' heads off in one shot, as tends to be the case with the Magnum in these games, but yeah. Okay.
This also leads credence to that Ethan is infected. There's no way he should be surviving these falls.
Yeah. I would like to see, based on the advertisement comment you made earlier in the credits, the responding email where this can't be too good of a bioweapon if a random dude who just wandered in managed to defeat it.
Calamity Ganon, what?
Well, here's the thing. He didn't manage to defeat it without help. He wouldn't have been able to kill it.
I know, but they don't know that.
Yeah. I mean...
As far as they can tell, he's just some dude who walked in and gathered all the guns lying about.
He wouldn't have managed to kill it without Umbrella's help, though.
Yeah. My leg bender.
Well, no, that's just your leg.
Curse you, Tom Nook.
When you don't pay the debt.
This is a pretty badass sequence, though, where you've been speared through the leg, but you're still firing away with your machine gun trying to kill this thing. That's
Well, it's not like you have much other option at this point.
that's just Resident Evil in a nutshell, isn't it? As long as you got bullets, you gotta keep fighting. You can't give up.
Well, I mean, you can.
You haven't lost until you're dead or out of ammo.
Yeah.
No, not even then. You have a knife.
Yeah.
Use it was the exact phrase Brad used when he tossed you the rocket launcher in the first game. This gun is loaded with special anti-BOW ammo that you don't get to use as a regular ammo type until you play as Chris and not a hero. So
It's funny because, again, just to bring up one point in Resident Evil 2 Remake, just briefly, this kind of ammo and effect from the shots appear in that game.
really,
Yeah, when, Annette.
I thought those were just acid rounds.
Oh, I think it's the same effect. It probably isn't. They're just using the same effect, but I'd like to think, some kind of cohesion there.
Maybe it just looks like Claire's acid rounds, though. Wow, it broke apart into styrofoam. That's a hell of a gun. It turns monsters into styrofoam.
What black magic is this?
A lot of people thought this
Hut,
guy
hut,
was
hut,
Hunk
hut,
at first.
I mean, it makes sense considering it looks nothing like Chris, but...
Chris never looks anything like Chris. He's always got a different face. I don't know why people are choosing now to notice that. Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
He was consistent for 2 games.
the only real difference between remake Chris and 5 Chris is that he ate a refrigerator.
That's a
And-
pretty goddamn big difference, though, John.
And he
Yeah.
grew a different face.
It's like it grew a different face.
But there was a lot of there was a lot of theorizing about Chris here, like because he introduced himself as Redfield instead of Chris Redfield, he's someone else using the name. No,
Potential. Yeah, no, it's Chris Redfield.
it's Chris Redfield. Yeah.
But to your point, I think Hunk would have been a better point at that. Just to have a fun little weird reference where it makes sense to have him, considering he is just a mercenary guy.
He was a member of Umbrella's security service. So
Yeah, but afterwards he just became a mercenary.
did he? Where
I
did he
believe
go
so.
afterward? I haven't heard anything about
It's just one of those implied things.
him.
You see, nothing bad in the Resident Evil universe would ever happen if everybody just stayed in the helicopter.
Da 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 da.
Because it's always the good ending on the helicopter.
Na, 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 na.
Well, that didn't help the Bravo team.
Yeah.
And your game could prematurely end on a helicopter in Resident Evil 5, which I find fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah.
And these guys are here to clean up the mess.
Now when people
So until I found out that the Umbrella Corporation was actually trying to, this part of the Umbrella Corporation was cleaning up their act, I took this ending originally to be super fucking dark.
It's just like, oh yeah, don't worry, Umbrella's here. It's like,
Yeah.
kind of an unintentional fake out there. It probably would have been more effective at first if Not a Hero hadn't been delayed. Because, it was a while before we found out what was actually up with Umbrella. But, it's cool that they're trying to bring Umbrella back in some sort of story capacity that isn't just them up to their old tricks or being imitated by someone who's up to the same tricks.
Let's fuck up an orphanage.
Wait.
Resident Evil even Resident Evil gets its own anime ending.
Wait, John, did you get to that part?
Yeah, I know about it.
Okay. I thought that was just
Yeah.
a really funny coincidental.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fucking annoying. Ooh! It's like a little on the nose there, buddy.
I like these credits, by the way. They've really, I think one of the things that's consistent between 7 and 2 Remake is that they've stepped up the cinematic presentation, because they have a really cool opening credit sequence in 2 as well.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be Mia?
I think it's supposed to be Mia.
Doesn't look like Mia.
Mia's passport.
Her awkward teenage driver's license.
I think that photo was supposed to be for sewer gators. Now, there are pictures of a church here, but I don't think you actually see the church in-game until the end of Zoe.
Yeah, no, there's not one in the main game, as far as I recall. Now, this is a fun little game. I'm not sure if it's discounted anywhere right at the moment.
well, it probably will go on sale soon-ish since Resident Evil 2 is now out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you could get it cheaper, obviously, if you find a physical version at a store or something. I'm just speaking purely digitally.
Well, if you're going to get it, you want to get the complete edition, which comes with all the DLC, so you can get the complete story and all that.
This is a weird game in the franchise because it has even less to do with anything than 4 does.
Not really. It's just
in terms of
Until
plot,
the
but
very end.
it's
but-
just it's just that 4 pays a little bit more lip service to the past events by having the main character be connected to them and having Ada Wong show up out of nowhere.
That's more what I'm referring to. Because aside from the Chris Umbrella thing at the very end, if you took that out, it would basically just not be Resident Evil. It would, in terms of plot and characters, you could just say it's not a Resident Evil game at all, and it's still work.
It's just stealing the whole Biohazard idea.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not like Resident Evil was the first one to come up with that, so...
Yeah.
No, it's kind of his shtick, though.
This is as far as the ones I've played, this is a good game, but there are ones I would still say are better.
Oh, yeah, there definitely are.
It's just mostly people compare this to 6, I think, and a lot of people did not like 6 at all, and consider this to be much, much better than that game.
I understand the dislike for 6 in the context of when it came out, because we really... the series had gotten so far from what made it good in the first place that it was barely recognizable. And yeah, there was a lot of Neo Umbrella, Leon S. Kennedy, Chris Redfield, Ada Wong doing Ada Wong things. But the gameplay, even when you added zombies back into it in the Leon campaign, it might as well have been a completely different franchise at that point.
Yeah.
You know? So... people were really, really, really fatigued by that at that point, and going back to the basics in Resident Evil 7 is refreshing. Still is, to be honest. It's very refreshing. It feels like we've gotten a handle with this game. We've gotten a handle on what made the Resident Evil gameplay loops interesting. More to the point, we've proven that we don't necessarily need the tank controls and fixed camera angles to make that all work. There are some people who claim that it absolutely needs that to be survival horror. No.
Not so much with this game in Remake 2, no.
No. It wasn't that... And this is kind of an old argument that a lot of people fell off of over time because they realized it was a bit silly. There was...
Wait, hold on. Why are there 5 Japanese voices for Chris Redfield?
I have no idea. I have no.
We are Chris Redfield.
We are Legion.
I have no idea. This is kind of an old argument. There were some people who claimed that Resident Evil worked because the tank controls limited your options, so that made it scary. No, the game did not work because of the tank controls. The tank controls worked because of the game. It was the other way around. The what comes from limited options is... limited options are just part of a balance. If you unlimit the options, if you make character movement more freeform, then in order to keep that balance, you just make the enemies more mobile. If you add in...
Or take more damage, so you have to figure out, is it worth using all this resources on them, or should I risk trying to get around them?
Yeah, and if you're going to add freeform aiming in, you make the enemies harder to hit, or harder to hit more precisely, or make it so that you have to hit them more precisely to make efficient use of your bullets. These are things that Resident Evil 7 does. It's like, yeah, you can try running around the enemies, but it's not going to be as easy as running around an enemy that isn't actively, aggressively trying to pursue you. You know? So, it's strange. In this game and in Remake 2, a room with 3 zombies in it, or 3 molded in it, can be actively more of a threat than a room with 6 or 7 zombies in it in Resident Evil 2, for example. Because they are more aggressively pursuing you, they're more mobile, they're wobblier, they're harder to hit, and...
your bullets don't do as much to them to stun them.
Yeah, well, that's more of a case in Remake 2.
Yes.
So... all of that comes together and balances itself in a way where you get the same kind of survival horror effect with more action mechanics. And, comparing this to the very original Resident Evil, just to see how far we've come, it's quite a bit harder to deal with those threats when they come up in this game than it is when they come up in Resident Evil 1. Even though it's generally the same number of enemies. So, it's interesting comparing that because the different approaches have different ups and downs to them, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that... Like, one thing that I really find interesting about this game, particularly, though, 7, is that it goes back to basics while also being completely separate, which is...
That was probably an excuse at the time to say, okay, if this flops, we can just disregard it as something on the side that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but that's true, but I also think that it's neat that they were trying to go back to make what made Resident Evil fun for so many people in the first place, while also not feeling like they needed to make it a traditional Resident Evil experience as well.
We brought it up a little bit earlier, but I think we really do have the PT demo to thank for this.
That too,
oh yeah, of course. The game, I'm sure that we would have a Resident Evil 7, but it might have been very different.
It might have been slightly different, but they were also working on this before that, and just sort of the stars aligned, But the other thing though is that part the stars, yeah, I know, I get it. The other thing, though, and they said this themselves, was that they made characters like Chris Redfield and Leon S. Kennedy too much heroes. They were too big. They were both too big of a hero. You couldn't really have a horror experience of this kind with them because they are both really, really skilled and really, really used to it.
And they're both really, really sick of this shit.
Yeah. So, it makes more sense to have Chris Redfield be a 2-hour side campaign where you've already been through the horror experience and now you're just seeing a side episode that explains more of it, rather than having him be the star again.
It'll be interesting when we do get to 8 what they plan on doing with not so much the greater story, but with the characters they have.
Well, here's the other thing. The newspaper clippings in the later parts of the credits seem to imply that the company that was gathering data from this little impromptu experiment still has access to their mold and are still going to be selling it on the black market. So we may see that company, or we may see the mold coming at us from another source who happened to buy it from that company.
Yeah.
And,
I think, just generally speaking, we're probably not likely to see zombies again, because I feel like people are still tired of zombies specifically.
Not necessarily.
Whether or not it's the mold or whatever.
Not necessarily, because one of the things that Remake 2 has definitely done is shown that the zombies, when handled in a specific way, can and will be very compelling as monsters to confront in these kind of games.
And I feel Resident Evil as a franchise kind of gets away with like the whole grandfather clause and that sort of thing, considering it kind of pioneered zombies in a video game.
But here's the thing. Okay, now what we have in Resident Evil is we have the zombies, we have the Ganado type enemies, and now we have the molded. That's 3 major enemy types, not counting the weird monsters that come up in the Revelations games. So the game, Resident Evil 8 and onward, they're set to have multiple kinds of monsters coming at you. And they can take advantage of that.
That could be interesting because now you can mix and match them. So
yeah, and
now zombies behave like they do in Remake 2, where they're aggressive, they're hard to kill, but they're not as effective combat-wise as, say, the molded.
Yeah, and
while the molded are easier to stun, but you have to worry about their attacks a lot more.
Yeah, and Resident Evil 6 really missed a trick with this, because they sort of isolated the zombies to Leon's campaign and the Ganado type enemies to Chris and Jake's campaigns. So you didn't really see them mixed and matched in any kind of interesting way. Even though it was all technically the C virus, I don't really know why it produced 2 types of different bioweapons, but there you go.
DNA is magical.
Yeah, well, in any case, it was interesting to see the multiple different bioweapons in one situation, but they didn't really take advantage of it. They just sort of made Leon's campaign the nostalgic one, and the other one the campaign for the people who like the Resi 4 nonsense. I say nonsense somewhat fondly because it's good nonsense. I like Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's not.
surprised they
I'd say
haven't made a spin-off that's much more like that yet.
I mean,
Like, at all.
It's weird in that I'd say on a complete game package, 4 is still probably the best overall game the franchise has. But there are aspects of this Remake 2, Remake 1 that are just as compelling as anything 4 does.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that took me about 7 hours and 14 minutes when I knew what I was doing. So it's not a very long campaign.
You also spent about an hour fiddling with your inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff too.
Easily.
But I got all the files, I got all the antique coins, I got 2 stabilizers and 4 steroids. I used 39 healing items and opened the item box 71 times. And there were only 4
Okay,
restarts.
Lewis, time for you to do a no healing
Don't
knife only
joke
playthrough
about
on
that. That is a
hardcore
trophy
mode.
in Remake 2,
Other-
and I'm never doing it. Ever.
What,
You
no
can't
healing
make me
hardcore mode?
try.
Yeah, you can't heal him. Yeah, that's one of the achievements.
There's a trophy for not healing, there's a trophy for not ever opening the item box, and there's a trophy for beating the game in under 14,000 steps.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention about no, you can't ride the Segway.
Woo!
But then the problem is Mr. X has his own Segway. And the chase is still on.
No, he's a Scooty Puff Jr.
It's Scooty Fox Jr. It's got a big wheel. It's got its own little mini tricycle.
Yeah. No,
And his legs are so wide apart as he's chasing your ass down.
He just rides in, Mr. X can give it to you.
Yeah. Well, play with a xylophone because he's running a mini trike. So